1,536,000 reals. Just take a look at that number for a second. That's the grand total of just 3 financial mistakes we found hiding inside a single company's books. 3 little errors that added up to, well, that. But here's the real kicker. We didn't uncover this with some super deep, complex forensic audit. Nope. We found it all just by asking one simple, devastatingly effective question that almost nobody ever thinks to ask. So let's get into it. We're going to pull back the curtain on what we call the unowned datum. And you're about to see how something as simple as a lack of responsibility can silently siphon millions right out of a company's bank account. Okay, let's start with the big one, the 1.5 million real mystery. Now, this isn't a story about fraud or some big, elaborate white-collar crime. It's actually a story about a quiet, creeping failure, a situation where, because no single person owns a piece of information, everybody ends up paying for it. I want you to try a little experiment with me. Right now, think about the last report you looked at, a sales dashboard, a financial statement, whatever. Now pick any number on it. Got one? Okay. Who, and I mean, what's the name of the one person who is ultimately accountable for that number's accuracy? If you can't answer in like 3 seconds, you might just have an unowned datum problem on your hands. And look, this isn't just some isolated thing. According to Gartner, the average company loses almost $13 million every single year just because of bad data. And IBM found that people are spending over a quarter of their work time, think about that, more than a full day every week, just fixing data errors instead of actually using data to do their jobs. This is a massive, expensive global problem. To really get our heads around this, let's use an analogy that makes this whole abstract problem feel a lot more real. I want you to think of your company's data like it's a big condominium building. And now imagine that building has absolutely no manager. You know, in a condo, you've got the manager who's accountable, the residents who use the space, and the maintenance crew keeping things in order. Well, in a company, you need the exact same thing: a data owner who's accountable, an operations team using the data, and validation processes. Without that manager or that data owner, the small problems just start to pile up. A tiny leak in the plumbing becomes a flood. A flickering light in the hallway becomes a total blackout. Everyone just kind of assumes someone else is on it right up until the moment the whole system just breaks down. And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? A piece of data without an owner is exactly like a building with no one in charge. Sooner or later, the bill for all that neglect is going to come due. The only real question is, who's going to be left holding it? Okay, so let's move from theory to reality. We're about to open up the case files from that one company we mentioned. These aren't hypothetical examples. These are documented, real-world financial black holes, all caused by the very same root problem. And let me just say it again, this wasn't fraud. Case file number 1, 317,000 reais in operational expenses. They were recorded, they were classified, and then they became completely invisible. So here's what happened. You had 541 totally legitimate expenses that were filed under a specific category. The problem? Due to some forgotten rule, that category was totally excluded from the main profit and loss statement. And since nobody was officially in charge of that category, no one was assigned to check its rules or even look inside it, $250,000 in costs just poof, vanished from the company's results. Case file number 2 is, well, it's even bigger. 733,000 reais. This was a phantom liability, basically a ghost haunting the balance sheet. Here, a tax payment was just entered incorrectly, and that one little mistake created this enormous payable, a debt that didn't actually exist. But because the process for entering and reviewing these payments had no clear owner, the number just grew month after month, completely unquestioned. There was no one assigned to just raise their hand and ask, hey, does this number even make sense? And now for case file number 3, 486,000 reais. This time the error wasn't a hidden cost or a phantom debt, it was a phantom asset. A series of contributions from shareholders had been totally paid off. The money was in the bank. But the person whose job it was to flip the status from pending to paid, well, that person was never defined. So for months, the company's books showed it was owed nearly $500,000 that it had already received, completely warping its actual financial health. So you see the pattern here, right? After digging through all of these cases, the verdict was clear, and it was always the same. This wasn't a story about bad people doing bad things. It was a story about broken systems. It wasn't malice, it was neglect. It wasn't fraud, it was just the simple, costly result of a datum without an owner. All right, you've seen the crime scene, you've seen the damage. So now, the big question, how do you stop this from happening at your company? It's time to open up the investigator's toolkit, and it all starts with understanding who is supposed to do what. There are 3 roles you absolutely have to know. First, the data owner. This is a senior business leader who is ultimately accountable. They decide the rules. Then you have the data steward. They're the hands-on subject matter expert who monitors the data quality day to day. And finally, the data custodian, which is usually your IT team. They protect the infrastructure. Now, the single biggest mistake we see companies make is blaming IT when the numbers are wrong. IT's job is to protect the data, but it's the business, the data owner, who owns its quality and its accuracy. So here's a simple framework you can start using like today. It's called DONO. D is for defined. Every single key metric has a named owner. O is for observable. Every calculation is documented and visible. No more secret spreadsheets or mystery formulas. N is for normalized. Your standards are consistent across the whole company. And the final O is for operational. You have a regular, scheduled rhythm for reviewing and validating your data. Now think back to our cases. A defined owner for that expense category would have saved $317,000. A scheduled operational review would have caught that phantom $733,000 liability in the very first month. This isn't just bureaucracy, it's a multi-million-dollar defense system. Now, we have to look to the future, because this entire problem is about to get a whole lot worse, exponentially worse. We are all rushing into the age of AI, and if you think unowned data is a headache now, just wait until you have an algorithm making 1,000 decisions a second based on it. The scale of this unreadiness is, well, it's pretty alarming. Gartner reports that a staggering 63% of organizations simply do not have the data practices in place to support AI. They're literally building their automated future on a foundation of quicksand. And this quote just nails the risk perfectly. Using AI without properly governed data is just like using a GPS with a totally outdated map. It's a really powerful tool that will confidently, efficiently, and very, very quickly drive you straight off a cliff. At the end of the day, it all boils down to this. You can have the best data infrastructure, the slickest architecture, the smartest processes in the world. But without clear ownership, all of that investment is incredibly fragile. Your pristine, beautiful data lake will inevitably decay into a polluted, unusable data swamp. Ownership is the absolute non-negotiable foundation for everything else. So we'll leave you with this one last thought. Every single number in your company is telling a story. It's whispering about hidden problems, it's flagging unseen risks, and it's pointing to incredible opportunities. So the real question is, in your organization, is anyone actually assigned to listen?